Hey guys, tonight we're diving into the frozen heart of the Arctic, where you're about to become an Inuit hunter, engineering the perfect snow house under a sky crackling with auroras. Picture this: the wind howls like a pack of wolves. The snow stretches endless as a blank canvas, and the cold bites so hard your eyelashes might snap off. You're out here, not just surviving, but crafting a masterpiece of ice and ingenuity that's kept people alive for centuries. Spoiler alert, if you mess this up, you probably won't survive this bone-chilling night. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. I'm curious where you're chilling tonight. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing on a windswept plain, your breath fogging in the air as we unravel the ancient origins of the snow house. Or as the Inuit call it, the igloo. These aren't just piles of snow slapped together. They're architectural marvels born from necessity. Around 3,000 years ago, Inuit ancestors, the Thule people, roamed the Arctic chasing caribou and seals across ice that never melts. Mainstream history tells us their nomadic lifestyle demanded portable warm shelters that could be built fast. The igloo was their answer, a dome of snow so sturdy it could hold a polar bear's weight, yet so temporary it could vanish with the spring thaw. You're not just building a house, you're channeling a survival instinct honed over millennia. But here's a quirky tidbit. Some elders swear the first igloos were inspired by watching polar bears carve dens in snowdrifts. Imagine you're an ancient hunter, squinting through a blizzard, seeing a bear scoop out a cozy cave. You think, hey, that's not a bad idea. It's probably half legend. But it makes you wonder how much you'd learn from a bear if you weren't busy running away. Historians still argue whether the igloo's design spread through cultural exchange or popped up independently across Arctic tribes. Did one genius hunter figure it out? Or was it a collective light bulb moment? No one's dug up a definitive answer. But the debate keeps scholars warm at night. You start to grasp why the igloo matters. It's not just a shelter. It's a lifeline. You're in a world where the sun might not rise for months and temperatures plunge to -40. Your hands wrapped in sealskin mittens itch to start building. But first you need to understand the stakes. Every choice snow-type location, even the angle of your knife, could mean the difference between a toasty night and a frozen disaster. You chuckle thinking how your modern thermostat would throw a tantrum here. No apps, no heaters, just you and the snow about to outsmart the Arctic itself. As you trudge forward, you notice the snow under your boots isn't just one thing. It's a mosaic of textures, some crunchy, some soft as powdered sugar. The Inuit didn't just grab any snow. They were picky like chefs, hunting the perfect ingredient. You're about to learn their secrets, but for now, you're soaking in the vastness of this icy world. The stars overhead are so bright, they feel like they're judging your survival skills. You smirk, wondering if they'd give you a 5-star rating for guts alone. The igloo's origins are rooted in this landscape where every hunter had to be part engineer, part artist. You're not just building a snow house, you're joining a tradition that laughs in the face of the cold. You take a deep breath, the air so crisp it stings your lungs, and feel the weight of history. The Thule didn't have blueprints or YouTube tutorials, yet their igloos were so perfect they're still studied today. You're starting to see the snow not as an enemy, but as a partner. It's moldable, strong, and believe it or not, warm, if you know its tricks. Your modern brain jokes that this is the ultimate off-grid tiny home, no mortgage required. But as you glance at the endless white horizon, you know this is no game. The Arctic doesn't care about your Wi-Fi signal. It's time to get serious, because the next step is picking the right snow, and trust me, not all snow is created equal. You're knee-deep in the Arctic now, the cold nibbling at your toes through your caribou hide boots, and you're staring at a sea of snow that looks deceptively uniform. But you're not fooled. Remember that polar bear den story from before? It's whispering in your mind as you realize the Inuit hunters didn't just scoop up any old snow to build their igloos. They were snow snobs, and you're about to become one too. Choosing the perfect snow is like picking the right Lego bricks, get it wrong, and your masterpiece crumbles faster than your confidence at a polar bear staring contest. The Inuit knew snow wasn't just snow. It's a whole ecosystem of textures, densities, and moods. You crouch down, your mittened hands sifting through the top layer. It's fluffy like powdered sugar, great for snowball fights, but useless for building. You dig deeper, and there it is, pukak, the magic stuff. This snow is dense, slightly crusty, and holds together like a dream when you pack it. Mainstream history notes that Inuit builders favored pukak because it's formed by wind-packed drifts, creating a natural cement that's strong yet carvable. You test a handful squeezing it. It sticks, no crumbling. You grin, feeling like you've cracked a secret code. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some Inuit hunters claimed they could hear the right snow. You're skeptical, raising an eyebrow as you imagine leaning down, ear to the ground, listening for snow's secret playlist. But elders swore that pukak has a distinct crunch underfoot, sharper than the soft squeak of fresh powder. You give it a try, stomping lightly. Sure enough, there's a crisp sound like nature's quality control. Historians still argue whether this snow listening trick was widespread or just a regional quirk. Did every hunter do it? Or was it one guy showing off the debates as slippery as an ice patch? You're starting to get why snow choice is life or death. Too loose and your igloo collapses, leaving you to cuddle with the wind for warmth. Too hard and you're hacking at ice like a frustrated sculptor. You shuffle forward, scanning for a drift that's been wind-kissed just right. The Arctic's teaching you patience, and you're half tempted to joke that this is nature's version of a picky eater. But the stakes keep you focused. You need snow that's cooperative, not a diva. As you move, you notice the wind carving patterns in the drifts, like an artist doodling on a canvas. You're looking for snow that's deep enough, about 2 feet, to cut solid blocks. You poke with your unak, a long stick used to test depth, and feel resistance. Perfect. This drift's been packed by days of wind, maybe even the same storm that's now tugging at your hood. You're not just picking snow, you're reading the landscape's story. A modern aside pops into your head. This is like choosing the right Wi-Fi signal, except failure means frostbite, not buffering. You start marking out a patch, dragging your boot to outline a rectangle. The snow here feels right, but you're double-checking because the Arctic doesn't give second chances. You think back to that Thule ingenuity, how they turned frozen water into a fortress. You're not just grabbing snow. You're selecting the foundation of your survival. A chuckle escapes as you imagine explaining to your friends that you're now a snow connoisseur. Oh, this pukak exquisite vintage, you'd say, winking. But there's no time for daydreams. You kneel, cutting a test block with your knife. It holds firm edges clean. You nod, satisfied. This snow's got potential, but you're not done. You need consistency across the whole drift, no weak spots. You move methodically, testing, listening, feeling. The cold's creeping into your fingers, but you're too focused to care. The igloo's taking shape in your mind, and this snow is your first victory. You're not just a hunter now. You're a snow whisperer, and the Arctic's starting to respect your hustle. You're standing over your chosen drift of pukak, the perfect snow you sniffed out like a culinary genius, and now it's time to gear up. The Arctic wind's giving you a not-so-gentle nudge, reminding you that building an igloo isn't just about snow. It's about the tools you wield. You're not grabbing a hammer and nails. You're reaching for specialized gear that's been fine-tuned by Inuit hunters for centuries. These tools aren't just objects. They're extensions of your hands, each one a love letter to survival. You smirk, thinking how your modern toolbox would probably cry at the sight of this simplicity. First up is the pana, your snow knife, and it's the star of the show. Picture a blade about a foot long carved from bone antler or driftwood with an edge sharp enough to slice snow like butter. Mainstream history tells us the pana was often made from caribou antler in the early days, ground to a fine edge against stone. You hold yours feeling its weight and marvel at how something so basic can be so precise. You test it, dragging the blade through the snow. It glides, leaving a clean cut. You're already daydreaming about showing off this skill at a winter barbecue until you remember the nearest grill is 1,000 miles away. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some hunters decorated their pana with tiny carvings of seals or ravens, believing it brought luck. You glance at your blade half expecting to see a doodle, but it's plain practical. Still, you wonder if a lucky seal etching would have helped you avoid that time you tripped over your own boots earlier. Historians still argue whether these carvings were spiritual or just boredom-busting art. Did they think a raven carving could charm the snow into cooperating? Or was it just flair? The debate's as old as the tools themselves. You've also got your unak, that long stick from before, now doubling as a probe and measuring rod. It's not flashy, just a stripped-down branch or bone, but it's clutch for checking snow depth and marking cuts. You tap it against the drift, feeling like a conductor warming up an orchestra. Then there's the tuk, a small bone or ivory scraper for smoothing rough edges. You tuck it into your parka, knowing it'll come in handy when you're fussing over details like a snow-obsessed interior designer. As you arrange your tools, you're struck by their elegance. No batteries, no warranties, just raw utility. You joke to yourself that this is the original minimalist lifestyle, no clutter, just vibes and a knife. But the Arctic's not laughing. You're about to carve a house from frozen water, and these tools are your lifeline. You kneel, pana in hand, and start outlining your first block. The blade bites into the snow, and you feel a rush. This isn't just cutting, it's sculpting survival. You pause to admire the pana's handiwork, but the wind's getting pushy, so you refocus. Each tool has a job, and you're learning to trust them. The unak helps you measure, ensuring your blocks are uniform, about 2 feet long, a foot wide, and 6 inches thick. You're not eyeballing this. Precision matters. A wonky block could destabilize your whole igloo, and you're not here to build a snowman that collapses by midnight. You chuckle, imagining explaining to your friends how you flunked igloo school. The tuk waits patiently for its moment, but you're already thinking ahead to how it'll smooth your blocks into a seamless dome. You're starting to respect the Inuit's ingenuity. Every tool is multi-purpose, like the Swiss Army knife of the Arctic. You're not just a hunter now. You're a craftsman, and these tools are your paintbrushes. The snow's ready, the drift's perfect, and your pana's itching to carve. You take a deep breath, the cold stinging your lungs, and get to work. The igloo's coming to life, one careful cut at a time. You're crouched in the Arctic twilight, your pana and unak at your side, the perfect pukak snow waiting like a blank canvas. But before you start slicing blocks, you need to pick the right spot for your igloo. It's not like you can just plop it anywhere. The Arctic's picky about real estate. You're learning that site selection is an art, a blend of instinct and logic that Inuit hunters mastered to outwit the wind and snow. One wrong choice, and your cozy dome becomes a wind tunnel. You smirk, thinking your modern GPS would probably just spin in circles out here. You scan the landscape, the snow glowing faintly under a sky streaked with stars. The Inuit looked for flat or slightly sloped ground, ideally shielded from the worst of the wind. Mainstream history records that hunters often chose spots near natural windbreaks, like low ridges or drifted snowbanks, to cut down on howling gusts. You spot a gentle rise, its edges softened by drifts, and trudge toward it. The wind's quieter here, less like a cranky neighbor banging on your walls. You tap the ground with your unak, checking for stability. Solid, no hidden ice patches. You're starting to feel like a snow realtor. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some hunters believe the best sights were blessed by spirits, marked by subtle signs like a raven circling overhead. You glance up, half expecting a bird to give you a thumbs up, but the sky's empty. You chuckle, wondering if a raven realtor would charge you in fish. Historians still argue whether these spiritual markers were practical, like noticing wind patterns, or purely cultural. Did hunters really trust a raven's flight path, or was it just a story to spook the kids? The debate's as murky as a blizzard. You're pacing now, marking out a circle about 10 feet across, big enough for a small family. You're not just picking a spot. You're reading the Arctic's mood. The wind's your biggest foe. It can erode your igloo or pile snow against the entrance, trapping you inside. You notice how the drifts curve around this rise, suggesting the wind flows past rather than slamming head-on. It's like the landscape's whispering, "Build here, buddy." You joke to yourself that this is the Arctic's version of feng shui minus the incense. But there's more to it. You're checking for snow depth because you need enough pukak to cut all your blocks from one spot. You jab your unak into the drift, feeling for resistance. It's deep, at least 2 feet, maybe 3. Perfect. You're not hauling snow from across the tundra like some poor intern fetching coffee. You also eye the surroundings for hazards. No nearby cliffs where avalanches might slide, no low spots where meltwater could pool in spring. You're thinking like an Inuit hunter now, every decision a hedge against disaster. As you finalize your spot, you drag your boot to outline the igloo's footprint. The snow crunches satisfyingly, and you feel a spark of pride. This isn't just a patch of ground. It's the foundation of your survival. You flash back to that polar bear den story, wondering if bears also pick their spots this carefully. Probably not. They've got claws, not panas. You grin, imagining a bear trying to file a building permit with the Arctic zoning board. The wind tugs at your parka, but you're locked in. Your tools are ready, the snow's prime, and this spot feels right. You're not just building an igloo. You're claiming a piece of the Arctic, turning its own weapons, snow and cold, against it. You kneel ready to cut your first block, but you pause, soaking in the quiet. The stars seem to nod approval. You're not just a hunter. You're a strategist, and this spot's your first victory. You're kneeling on your chosen Arctic plot, the wind humming like a distant lullaby, and your perfect pukak snow is begging to be carved. It's time to cut your first block, the moment where your igloo stops being a dream and starts becoming real. You grip your pana, that bone-sharp snow knife, and feel like a sculptor about to chip away at marble. Except your canvas is frozen, and your studio's a wind-whipped tundra. The Inuit made this look easy, but you're about to learn it's all about precision patience and not stabbing your own foot. You chuckle, imagining explaining a snow-related ER visit to your friends. You start by outlining a rectangle in the snow about 2 feet long, 1 foot wide, and 6 inches deep. Mainstream history tells us Inuit hunters cut blocks this size for a balance of strength and manageability, big enough to build fast, small enough to lift without pulling a muscle. You drag your pana along the snow, the blade slicing clean as a hot knife through ice cream. The pukak cooperates, its wind-packed density holding firm. You cut the sides, then angle the blade to free the block's base, popping it out like a giant ice cube. You hold it up, grinning. It's heavier than it looks, but solid. Here's a quirky tidbit some hunters sang to their snow blocks, while cutting, believing it kept the snow happy. You try humming a tune, feeling ridiculous, but the rhythm steadies your hands. Maybe there's something to it, or maybe you're just distracting yourself from the cold creeping into your knees. Historians still argue whether these songs were practical, keeping a steady cutting pace, or spiritual like a charm for a sturdy igloo. Did the snow really care about your karaoke skills? The debate's as frosty as the ground you're kneeling on. You're not just hacking away. You're following a system. You cut each block from the same drift, keeping them uniform. You use your unak to measure, ensuring every block matches the first. A wonky block could throw off your dome's curve, and you're not here to build the leaning tower of snow. You joke to yourself that this is like assembling IKEA furniture, except the instructions are in your head and the stakes are hypothermia. You cut another block, then another, stacking them nearby. The drift's deep enough to supply dozens, just as you'd hoped when you picked this spot. As you work, you notice the snow's texture shifting slightly. Some spots are crustier, others softer. You adjust your cuts, angling the panna to compensate. The Inuit were masters at reading these subtle changes, and you're starting to get the hang of it. You flash back to that raven realtor from your site selection, wondering if it would approve of your block-cutting form. Probably not. It's too busy stealing fish somewhere. You smirk, wiping snow from your mittens. The rhythm of cutting is hypnotic, almost meditative. Scrape, slice, lift, repeat. Your breath fogs in the air, and the Arctic feels less hostile now, like it's watching you with grudging respect. You're not just cutting blocks. You're building trust with the snow. Each one is a puzzle piece, and you're already picturing the dome they'll form. You pause to shake out a cramp, your fingers tingling from the cold. Modern, you wants a coffee break, but Inuit, you knows there's no Starbucks on the tundra. You've got a small pile now, enough to start building soon. You're tempted to rush, but you remember the Pukak's lesson: quality over speed. One bad block could doom your igloo, and you're not gambling with the Arctic's mercy. You cut one more, inspecting its edges. Clean, solid, ready. You're not just a hunter now, you're a snow architect, and these blocks are your first bricks. You're surrounded by a neat stack of snow blocks, each one carved with your panna from that perfect Pukak drift you picked out. The Arctic air stings your cheeks, but you're buzzing with purpose. It's time to lay the base layer of your igloo. This is where your snow house starts to take shape, like the first strokes of a painting. You're not just piling blocks. You're engineering a foundation that'll hold up against wind, weight, and the Arctic's bad attitude. You smirk, thinking how your modern self would probably call this extreme Lego. But one wobbly piece could turn your masterpiece into a frosty flop. You start by arranging your blocks in a circle about 10 feet across, right on the spot you scouted earlier. Mainstream history tells us Inuit hunters laid their base in a spiral, not a flat ring, to create a gradual inward curve from the get-go. You place the first block, then the next, cutting their edges at a slight angle so they lean inward just a hair. It's like stacking dominoes, but instead of knocking them down, you're building up. You use your unak to check alignment, ensuring the circle's tight. The blocks fit snug, their Pukak texture gripping like natural glue. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some hunters swore the base layer needed a blessing of snow tossed over it, like a chef sprinkling salt for luck. You try it, flinging a handful of powder and feeling a bit silly, but it settles into the cracks, sealing tiny gaps. Maybe it's practical. Maybe it's tradition. But it feels right. Historians still argue whether this snow tossing was about insulation or just superstition. Did it really strengthen the base, or was it a ritual to calm jittery builders? The debate's as slippery as the ice you're avoiding. You're kneeling now, adjusting each block with care. The spiral's key: you cut the top of each block at a diagonal, so the next layer will climb upward and inward. It's tricky, like solving a 3D puzzle while your fingers freeze. You joke to yourself that this is the Arctic's version of Jenga, except losing means you're sleeping in a snowdrift. You pack snow into the seams, using your toque to smooth the joints. The base feels solid, like it could shrug off a caribou stampede. You're starting to see the igloo's shape in your mind, a dome rising from this humble start. As you work, you flash back to that polar bear den story from way back. If bears inspired igloos, they probably didn't fuss over spirals. But you're grateful for the Inuit's obsession with geometry. You place another block, checking its lean with your unak. The wind's picking up, tugging at your parka, but your base holds firm. You're learning to trust the snow the same way you trusted your Pukak and your panna. Each block locks into place, and you feel a spark of pride. This isn't just a circle. It's the heartbeat of your igloo. You pause to catch your breath, the cold air sharp in your lungs. The base layer's almost done, just a few more blocks to complete the spiral's first loop. You're tempted to rush, but you remember the Pookak's lesson: precision is survival. A sloppy base could make your dome collapse, and you're not here to build a snow fort for kids. You chuckle, imagining explaining to your friends how you flunked Igloo 101. You smooth one last seam, then step back. The circle's perfect, a snowy crown ready for the next layer. You're not just a hunter now. You're a builder, and this base is your promise to the Arctic. The stars overhead seem to wink, like they're rooting for you. You grab another block, ready to start the next spiral. But for now, you savor the moment. Your igloo's coming alive, and you're the one making it happen. You're standing inside the spiral base of your igloo, the snow blocks circling you like a frozen hug. The Arctic wind's still out there, muttering complaints, but you're focused on the next challenge shaping the dome. This is where your snow house transforms from a flat foundation into a curved masterpiece, defying gravity and common sense. You're not just stacking blocks anymore. You're playing 3D chess, with snow angling each piece to create a perfect self-supporting dome. You grin, thinking how your modern self would probably compare this to assembling a spaceship, except your tools are a pana and sheer grit. You start the second layer, placing blocks atop the base's diagonal cuts. Mainstream history notes that Inuit hunters used a continuous spiral technique, each block leaning inward more than the last, to form a smooth parabolic curve. You cut the top of each block at a steeper angle, using your unak to gauge the incline. It's like carving a giant snow cone from the inside out. You place a block packed snow into the seams and check its tilt. Too steep and the dome collapses. Too shallow and you're building a cylinder. You're aiming for Goldilocks perfection just right. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some hunters claimed they felt the dome's curve through their mittens, like the snow itself whispered when the angle was correct. You press a block into place, half expecting a mystical vibe. But all you feel is cold. Still, the block sits snug, and you wonder if those hunters were onto something, or just really good at psyching themselves up. Historians still argue whether this snow whispering was intuition honed by practice or a cultural flourish to impress apprentices. Did the snow really talk, or was it all in their heads, the debate's as curved as the dome you're building? You're working faster now, finding a rhythm. Cut, place, pack smooth. The walls are rising, the inward lean, more pronounced with each block. You use your tuk to shave rough edges, ensuring a tight fit. You joke to yourself that this is like sculpting a giant igloo cake, except you can't eat it, and the frosting's trying to freeze your fingers. The spiral's magic is in its strength. Each block supports the next, distributing weight evenly. You flash back to that polar bear den story, wondering if bears accidentally stumbled on this physics trick. Probably not, but you're grateful for the Inuit's engineering genius. As the dome narrows, the work gets trickier. You're leaning into the structure now, your body half inside the igloo. The blocks are smaller, compensating for the tightening curve. You're careful not to nudge the walls. One wrong move, and your snow Jenga tower tumbles. You chuckle, imagining explaining to your friends how you karate chopped your own igloo by accident. You pack more snow into the seams, using your mittens to press it firm. The Pookak's still your ally, its texture locking everything in place, like nature's mortar. You pause to peek through the shrinking opening above. The stars are brighter now, framed by your dome in progress. It's surreal, like you're inside a snow globe. You're not just building a shelter. You're crafting a cocoon that'll keep the Arctic's claws at bay. The walls are chest high, the curve unmistakable. You're tempted to rush, but you remember the Pookak's lesson: precision is everything. A sloppy dome's as useful as a screen door on a submarine. You place another block, feeling the structure's strength grow. You're not just a hunter or a builder now. You're an architect, coaxing a dome from frozen chaos. The igloo's taking shape, and you're the one bending the Arctic to your will. You smooth one last seam, then step back well as much as you can in this cozy spiral. The dome's not done, but it's alive, and you're ready to keep climbing. You're half swallowed by your igloo now, the snow dome curving over you like a frozen planetarium. The walls are shoulder high, the spiral tightening, and the Arctic's bitter wind feels like a distant bully, blocked by your growing fortress. But you're not out of the woods, or rather the tundra yet. Shaping the dome was tough, but now you've got to tackle ventilation and safety, the unsung heroes of igloo engineering. Without them, your cozy snow cave could turn into a death trap faster than you can say carbon dioxide. You smirk, thinking how your modern smoke detector would probably just freeze and sulk out here. Ventilation is critical, and Inuit hunters knew it. You need to carve a small hole about fist-sized near the dome's top to let stale air and moisture escape. Mainstream history tells us this vent was essential to prevent suffocation, as a family's breath and body heat could build up deadly gases inside a sealed igloo. You grab your pena, climbing carefully onto a snow ledge you've packed inside. You slice a precise circle, the snow falling away like a plug. Cold air rushes in sharp but refreshing. You peer through seeing stars and feel like you've just installed nature's air conditioner. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some hunters placed a tiny bone or feather over the vent to act as a wind gauge, fluttering to show airflow. You don't have a feather handy, but you imagine sticking a stray caribou hair there just to feel fancy. It's probably more practical than mystical, but you like the vibe. Historians still argue whether these gauges were standard or just a quirky habit of certain families. Did every igloo have a fluttering sentinel, or was it one hunter's artsy touch? The debate's as breezy as the vent you've just carved. You're not done with safety. The vent's great, but you also need to manage heat. An igloo's warmth comes from body heat, and maybe a small kullik, a stone lamp burning seal blubber. You haven't set one up yet, but you know it'll produce smoke and soot. You carve a second smaller hole lower on the wall, angled to catch cross breezes without letting in too much cold. It's like balancing a thermostat, except your tools are a knife and your gut. You joke to yourself that this is the Arctic's version of HVAC, minus the guy in coveralls charging you a fortune. You flash back to that polar bear den story, wondering if bears bother with ventilation. Probably not, they're too busy snoring through blizzards. But you're grateful for the Inuit's foresight. You pack snow around the vent's edges, using your tuk to smooth it, ensuring no cracks weaken the dome. The pukak's still your MVP, its texture sealing everything tight. You're learning to think 3 steps ahead like a chess player in mittens. A blocked vent could choke you. A poorly placed one could freeze you. It's all about balance. As you work, you notice the igloo's interior, glowing faintly, the snow walls catching starlight through the vent. It's eerie, like you're inside a giant lantern. You're tempted to linger, but safety first. You check the dome for weak spots, tapping with your unak. It's solid, but you reinforce a seam anyway, packing in more snow. You chuckle, imagining telling your friends you're now a certified igloo safety inspector. They'd probably ask if it comes with a badge. You're not just building a shelter, you're crafting a lifeline. The vents are small but mighty, keeping the air fresh and the igloo livable. You're not a hunter or architect, no. You're a survival engineer, outsmarting the Arctic one hole at a time. You step back, careful not to bump the walls, and take a deep breath. The air's crisp, the dome's holding. You're ready for the next step, but for now you savor the quiet safety of your snow sanctuary. You're tucked inside your igloo now, the dome arching above like a frozen cathedral, its vents letting the Arctic's icy breath whisper through. The walls glow faintly, catching the last of the twilight, and you're starting to feel the first hints of warmth, not from a heater, but from the snow itself. You're about to master insulation, the Inuit's secret weapon for turning a pile of frozen water into a toasty haven. This isn't just packing snow. It's engineering a thermal shield that laughs at the Arctic's deep freeze. You smirk, thinking how your modern fleece blanket would probably beg for mercy out here. Insulation in an igloo comes from the snow's natural properties and your clever tweaks. Mainstream history tells us that Pukak snow traps air in tiny pockets, creating a barrier that holds in body heat while blocking the cold. You start by packing loose snow into every seam and crevice of your dome, using your mittens like a trowel. The Pukak's texture is perfect, crumbly enough to fill gaps, sticky enough to stay put. You smooth it with your toque, building up a thick layer inside the walls. It's like plastering a house, except your plaster's frozen and your house is a snow globe. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some hunters believe the best insulation came from snow, blessed by a clear night's moonlight, claiming it packed tighter. You glance up through the vent, spotting the moon's pale glow, and wonder if you should thank it for your snow's quality. It's probably just a story, but you give the moon a nod anyway, feeling like a lunar contractor. Historians still argue whether this moonlight talk was practical. Maybe moonlit snow was colder, denser, or pure folklore. Did it really make a difference, or was it just a way to make long nights feel magical? The debate's as soft as the snow you're packing. You're working methodically, piling snow against the lower walls where the cold bites hardest. You're not just sealing gaps. You're thickening the igloo's skin, sometimes up to a foot deep inside. This extra layer traps heat like a down jacket, keeping you and your future Kulik lamp cozy. You joke to yourself that this is the Arctic's version of bubble wrap, except it's saving your life instead of protecting a package. You flash back to that polar bear den story, wondering if bears pack their dens this carefully. Probably not. They've got fur, not finesse. As you pack, you notice the igloo's interior warming slightly. Your breath no longer fogging as much. The snow's doing its job, turning the dome into a thermal cocoon. You're careful not to overdo it too much. Loose snow could weaken the structure. You use your unak to tap the walls, checking for balance. Everything's solid, the Pukak holding like a champ. You're starting to respect this snow like an old friend, the same Pukak you picked out way back when you were playing snow connoisseur. You pause to smooth a rough patch, your mittens caked with snow. The igloo's glow is softer now, the walls diffusing light like frosted glass. You're tempted to kick back and admire your work. But you know insulation's a marathon, not a sprint. A thin spot could let the cold sneak in, and you're not here to build a popsicle palace. You chuckle, imagining telling your friends you're now an igloo insulation expert. They'd probably ask if it comes with a cozy sweater. You're not just a builder or engineer now. You're a thermal wizard, weaving warmth from the Arctic's own weapon. The igloo's starting to feel like home, and you're the one making it happen. You pack one last handful of snow, then step back, careful not to bump the vent above. The dome's ready for the next step, but for now you bask in the quiet warmth of your snow sanctuary, the Arctic's chill held at bay. You're cozy inside your igloo now. The dome's thick walls and clever insulation holding the Arctic's icy fingers at bay. The faint glow of starlight filters through the vent, and you're starting to feel like you've tamed this frozen wilderness. But there's one more structural hurdle: the doorway. You need an entrance that keeps the warmth in and the wind out, a tricky balance that Inuit hunters nailed with engineering so slick it'd make a modern architect jealous. You're about to carve a doorway that's as much a fortress gate as it is a welcome mat. You smirk, thinking how your front door at home would probably whine about the cold out here. The Inuit designed igloo doorways, low and narrow, often sunk below ground level to trap heat. Mainstream history tells us this sunken entrance, called a kavavik, used the principle of cold air sinking to keep warm air inside like a natural thermos. You kneel at the base of your dome, picking a spot facing away from the prevailing wind. Thanks to that site selection savvy you honed earlier. You start carving with your pana, slicing a trench about 2 feet deep and just wide enough for you to crawl through. It's like digging a tunnel to Narnia, except it's snow. And you're not chasing a lion. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some hunters lined their doorways with seal bones to mark the threshold, believing it honored the animals that sustained them. You don't have any bones handy, but you imagine placing a few for style, like an Arctic welcome sign. It's probably more symbolic than structural, but it adds character. Historians still argue whether these bone markers were widespread or just a family quirk. Did every igloo have a bony doorstep, or was it one hunter's way of flexing their gratitude? The debate's as narrow as the tunnel you're carving. You're digging carefully, angling the trench upward into the igloo's interior to create a slight ramp. This keeps the cold air pooled outside while letting you slither in without banging your head. You joke to yourself that this is the Arctic's version of a doggy door, except you're the one crawling. You use your tuk to smooth the tunnel's walls, ensuring they're sturdy. The pukak's still your MVP, its texture holding the shape like a dream. You flash back to that polar bear den story, wondering if bears bother with fancy doorways. Probably not, they just barrel through like furry bulldozers. As you carve, you build a small arch of snow blocks over the entrance to reinforce it. This isn't just aesthetics. It prevents collapse when the wind gets pushy. You pack snow into the seams using your mittens to press it tight. The doorway's low enough that you'll need to duck, but that's the point, less space for heat to escape. You're starting to appreciate the Inuit's obsession with efficiency. Every detail, a middle finger to the Arctic's chill. You chuckle, imagining telling your friends you're now an igloo doorman. They'd probably ask if you're handing out snow cones. You test the tunnel crawling through on your belly. It's snug but functional, the ramp guiding you into the igloo's warm interior. You pop up inside, brushing snow from your parka, and feel a rush of pride. The doorway's not just an entrance. It's a thermal lock keeping your hard-earned warmth safe. You reinforce the outer edge with more pukak shaping a small windbreak to deflect gusts. The igloo's feeling more like home, every second a sanctuary you've carved from the Arctic's own weapons. You're not just an architect or engineer now. You're a gatekeeper controlling the flow of warmth and cold. The igloo's nearly complete, and you're the one making it a fortress. You crawl back out, careful not to scuff your handiwork, and take a moment to admire the doorway's clean lines. The stars overhead seem to nod approval, and you're ready for the next step, but for now, you savor the quiet triumph of your snow-crafted portal. You're back inside your igloo, the low doorway behind you, sealing out the Arctic's grumpy wind. The dome's complete, the vents are breathing, and the insulation's working its magic, wrapping you in a surprising bubble of warmth. Now it's time to turn this snow cave into a home time for interior customization. Inuit hunters didn't just sleep on bare snow. They tricked out their igloos with practical, cozy touches that made life in the deep freeze almost inviting. You're about to pimp your ride Arctic style, and you grin, thinking how your modern couch would probably turn into an ice cube out here. You start with the sleeping platform, the heart of any igloo's interior. Mainstream history tells us Inuit families built raised platforms from packed snow covered with furs to keep sleepers off the colder floor where chilly air settles. You grab your pana and carve blocks from the interior walls, recycling snow like a pro. You stack them into a wide bench along one side, about 2 feet high, packing pukak to smooth the surface. You imagine tossing caribou hides over it, maybe some muskox for extra fluff. It's not a memory foam mattress, but it's a throne compared to the frozen ground. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some hunters carved tiny niches in the walls for personal trinkets like bone combs or seal-tooth charms to keep spirits high during long winters. You try it, chiseling a small shelf with your pana for your imaginary whalebone knife. It's more decorative than essential, but it feels like leaving your mark. Historians still argue whether these niches were practical storage or sentimental, like Arctic photo frames. Did every igloo have them, or were they a personal flourish? The debate's as cozy as the furs you're dreaming of. You're not stopping at the bed. You carve a smaller shelf near the doorway for a kulik, the stone lamp that'll burn seal blubber for heat and light. You don't have one yet, but you shape the nook to hold it steady, angling it to avoid drips. You joke to yourself that this is the Arctic's version of a kitchen island, minus the granite and overpriced smoothies. You flash back to that polar bear den story, wondering if bears bother with interior decor. Probably not, they're too busy napping on whatever's softest. Next, you smooth the floor, scraping away loose snow with your toque. You want it level, not a lumpy mess that'll trip you in the dark. You pack the scraps into the platform, wasting nothing. The pukak's still your trusty sidekick, its texture perfect for sculpting. You're starting to feel like an Inuit Marie Kondo, sparking joy with every tidy corner. You carve a shallow trench along the walls to catch meltwater, because even a warm igloo sweats a little. It's a small touch, but it keeps your furs dry and your toes happy. As you work, the igloo's glow shifts, the snow walls softening the starlight into a dreamy haze. You're tempted to flop onto your platform and call it a day, but you've got one more trick. A low snow bench opposite the sleeping area for sitting or stashing gear. You shape it quickly, smoothing it with your mittens. It's practical, but you imagine lounging there, swapping stories with your hunting buddies. You chuckle, picturing telling your friends you're now an igloo interior designer. They'd probably ask if you're selling snow furniture on Etsy. You're not just a gatekeeper or thermal wizard now. You're a homemaker, turning a snow dome into a sanctuary. The igloo's alive with purpose, every nook a testament to Inuit ingenuity. You step back, careful not to scuff your platform, and take in the space. It's simple, functional, and weirdly inviting, like the Arctic's coziest studio apartment. You're ready for the next step, but for now you savor the quiet pride of making this frozen shell a home. You're nestled in your igloo, the sleeping platform fluffed with imaginary furs, the kulik nook ready for action, and the Arctic's chill locked outside your snowy fortress. The dome's soft glow feels almost magical, like you're camping inside a giant snowball. Now it's time to play with light and ambiance, because Inuit hunters didn't just build shelters, they crafted vibes. You're about to manipulate the snow's translucence to turn your igloo into a glowing haven. A trick that's half science, half art. You grin, thinking how your modern LED lamp would probably short-circuit in jealousy out here. Snow isn't just a building block, it's a light diffuser. Mainstream history tells us Inuit hunters used the natural translucence of pukak to let daylight or moonlight filter through, creating a soft glow without windows. You notice how the walls catch the faint starlight from your vent, scattering it like a frosted lampshade. To enhance this, you thin the upper dome, slightly shaving snow with your panna to make it more translucent. You're careful not to weaken the structure, just enough to let light dance through. It's like tuning a guitar, finding the perfect balance for a warm, ethereal glow. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some hunters claimed they could read the light through the walls to gauge the weather, saying thicker glow meant a storm was coming. You squint at your dome, half expecting a weather report, but it just looks pretty. Maybe it's true, maybe it's Arctic folklore, but it's a cool party trick. Historians still argue whether this light reading was meteorological genius or just wishful thinking. Did the igloo really forecast blizzards, or were hunters just good at guessing? The debate's as hazy as the glow you're crafting. You're not stopping at natural light. You imagine lighting the kulik, its flame casting a golden flicker across the walls. Without it yet, you experiment by packing a thin layer of loose snow on the interior, diffusing the starlight even more. The effect is subtle but stunning, like living inside a cloud. You joke to yourself that this is the Arctic's version of mood lighting, no dimmer switch required. You flash back to that polar bear den story, wondering if bears care about ambiance. Probably not, they're too busy dreaming of seals. You carve a small ledge near the vent, angling it to reflect light downward, like a natural spotlight for your platform. It's a small touch, but it makes the space feel alive. You use your toque to smooth the walls, polishing them to catch every ray. The pukak's texture is perfect, its crystalline structure bending light like a prism. You're starting to feel like an Inuit lighting designer orchestrating glows and shadows. You chuckle, imagining telling your friends you're now an igloo ambiance guru. They'd probably ask if you're selling snow chandeliers. As you work, the igloo's interior shifts, the light softening into a dreamy haze. It's practical enough to see by, but also soothing, like the Arctic's giving you a hug. You're tempted to lie back and stargaze through the vent, but you focus. You check the walls for weak spots, tapping with your unak. Everything's solid, the light enhancing without compromising strength. You're learning to balance form and function, just like the Inuit did, every choice a nod to survival and style. You're not just a homemaker or engineer now. You're an artist painting with light in a frozen gallery. The igloo's a beacon in the Arctic night, and you're the one making it shine. You smooth one last patch, stepping back to admire the glow. It's not just a shelter. It's a sanctuary, warm in both temperature and spirit. You're ready for the next step, but for now, you bask in the quiet beauty of your illuminated snow home the Arctic's darkness held at bay. You're lounging in your igloo, the walls glowing like a soft lunar lamp, your sleeping platform ready for a fur blanket upgrade, and the Arctic's howl muffled outside. This snow dome's a masterpiece, but it's not indestructible. Blizzards, warm spells, or even your own clumsy crawling could crack your handiwork. Now it's time to learn maintenance tricks, the Inuit's art of keeping an igloo sturdy and snug through the worst the tundra throws at it. You're about to become a snow house handyman, and you grin thinking how your modern toolbox would probably rust in embarrassment out here. Maintenance starts with vigilance. Inuit hunters regularly check their igloos for cracks or weak spots, especially after storms. Mainstream history tells us they used their pana to shave down uneven snow buildup on the exterior, preventing wind from exploiting tiny fissures. You crawl out through your low doorway, pana in hand, and inspect the dome. The wind's piled some fresh snow against one side, so you gently scrape it off, smoothing the surface like you're polishing a giant snowball. It's tedious, but crucial. Unbalanced snow could stress the structure, and you're not here to rebuild from scratch. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some hunters believe tapping the walls with their unak could wake the igloo, helping it settle into a stronger form. You give it a try, tapping lightly, half expecting the snow to hum back. Nothing happens, but the rhythm feels oddly reassuring, like checking a pulse. Historians still argue whether this tapping was structural. Maybe it revealed hidden cracks, or just a ritual to ease a hunter's nerves. Did the igloo really need a wake-up call, or was it all in their heads? The debate's as crisp as the snow you're smoothing. You're back inside now, checking for interior damage. The kulik's future heat could melt patches, so you reinforce the walls with fresh pukak, packing it tight with your mittens. You flash back to that polar bear den story, wondering if bears bother with upkeep. Probably not, they'd just dig a new hole. But you're no bear. You're an Inuit-style fixer, using your tuk to smooth drips or frost from the ceiling. You joke to yourself that this is the Arctic's version of patching drywall, minus the YouTube tutorials and coffee breaks. You notice a small crack near the vent, likely from the dome settling. You don't panic, you grab loose snow. Mix it with a bit of spit for stickiness, gross, but effective, and press it into the fissure. It hardens fast, sealing the gap. The pukak's still your trusty ally, its texture perfect for quick repairs. You're learning to think like a hunter, always ready for the Arctic's next curveball. You chuckle, imagining telling your friends you're now an igloo repairman. They'd probably ask if you're taking bookings for snow roof leaks. You also reinforce the doorway's windbreak, piling more snow to deflect gusts. It's like fortifying a castle gate, except your moat's a frozen tundra. You check the vents, ensuring they're clear of ice buildup. A blocked vent could choke the air, and you're not gambling with that. You're tempted to call it quits and crawl onto your platform. But maintenance is ongoing, like brushing your teeth. Skip it and things get messy. You smooth one last patch, ensuring the dome's as tight as when you built it. You're not just an artist or homemaker now. You're a caretaker keeping your igloo alive in the Arctic's harsh grip. The dome's holding strong its glow steady, and you're the one making it last. You step back, brushing snow from your parka, and take in the igloo's quiet strength. It's ready for whatever comes next, and so are you. For now you savor the satisfaction of a well-kept snow home. The Arctic storms, no match for your newfound skills. You're back inside your igloo, the walls gleaming softly, the sleeping platform begging for a nap, and the Arctic's icy tantrums held at bay by your maintenance skills. But this snow house isn't just a shelter. It's a cornerstone of Inuit culture woven into stories, songs, and a way of life that's endured for centuries. You're about to dive into the cultural significance of the igloo, how it's more than snow and sweat carrying the heart of a people who've outsmarted the tundra forever. You grin thinking how your modern apartment could never compete with this kind of legacy. The igloo is a symbol of survival and community. Mainstream history tells us Inuit oral traditions often cast the igloo as a character. In stories, a protector that shelters families during epic hunts or blizzards. You imagine sitting on your platform listening to an elder recount how a legendary hunter built an igloo to save his kin from a storm, the tale growing taller with each telling. It's not just a house. It's a stage for life births, meals, laughter, all unfolding in this dome. You feel the weight of that, like you're part of something bigger than your own snow-carving hustle. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some Inuit songs describe the igloo as a singing house, claiming its walls hum when the wind hits just right. You press your ear to the snow, half expecting a tune, but it's silent. Maybe you need a bigger storm. It's probably more poetic than literal, but it's a charming image. Historians still argue whether this singing was acoustic from wind through vents, or purely metaphorical, a way to honor the igloo's spirit. Did the snow really serenade, or was it a storyteller's flair? The debate's as lively as the tales you're picturing. You're starting to see the igloo as a cultural glue. Families built them together, passing skills from parent to child like a snowy apprenticeship. You flash back to your own journey, choosing pukak cutting blocks, shaping the dome, and realize you've walked in those ancestors' boots. The igloo binds people not just to survival, but to each other. You joke to yourself that it's the Arctic's version of a family barbecue, except the grill's a kulik and the menu's seal stew. You're tempted to hum one of those singing house songs, but your tune's more off-key than mystical. The igloo also carries spiritual weight. Some stories tie it to the land's spirits, a gift from the Arctic itself. You think of that moonlight-blessed snow you packed earlier, wondering if it was more than folklore. The pukak's still your partner, its texture tying you to this tradition. You carve a small mark on the wall. Not a niche, just a scratch to honor the stories you're weaving into this space. It's not traditional, but it feels right, like signing a guest book in a frozen museum. You chuckle, imagining telling your friends you're now an igloo storyteller. They'd probably ask if you're narrating snowflake sagas. As you sit, the igloo's glow feels warmer, like it's soaking up the tales you're spinning. It's a classroom, a sanctuary, a stage, all in one. You're not just maintaining a structure, you're preserving a legacy. The Inuit didn't just build igloos to survive. They built them to thrive, to tell the Arctic, we're here and we're staying. You're learning that every block, every vent, every fur is a verse in their song. You smooth the platform with your mitten, feeling connected to those hunters, their voices echoing in the snow. You're not just a caretaker or artist now. You're a keeper of stories, holding the igloo's spirit in your hands. The dome's more than snow, it's a testament to resilience. You're ready for the final step, but for now you linger, the igloo's quiet hum, or maybe just your imagination, wrapping you in its timeless embrace. You're nestled in your igloo, the walls pulsing with that soft, story-soaked glow, the platform ready for a well-earned rest, and the Arctic's relentless cold firmly locked outside. You've built a masterpiece, a snow dome that's not just a shelter, but a piece of Inuit soul humming with centuries of survival and spirit. Now you're about to see how this ancient craft lives on as modern Inuit blend traditional igloo building with today's survival needs. You're stepping into the present, and you grin thinking how your modern smartphone would probably freeze before it could snap a selfie in this snowy palace. Inuit communities today still build igloos, especially during hunts or cultural festivals, keeping the skill alive. Mainstream history tells us that while snowmobiles and heated cabins have joined the Arctic toolkit, igloos remain a backup for emergencies or a way to teach younger generations. You imagine joining a modern Inuit hunting party cutting pukak blocks just like you did, but maybe with a battery-powered lamp instead of a kulik. The core techniques, spiral domes, low doorways, ventilation haven't changed, proof of their genius. You're proud to have mastered them, even if your pana's a bit shakier than a seasoned hunter's. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some modern Inuit builders compete in igloo building contests, racing to construct the fastest, sturdiest dome like an Arctic Olympics. You picture yourself entering, fumbling a block, while the crowd chuckles, but secretly you'd love the challenge. It's a fun twist on tradition, blending pride with play. Historians still argue whether these contests preserve skills or turn sacred practices into spectacle. Are they honoring the igloo's legacy or just showing off for tourists? The debate's as lively as the festivals you're imagining. You're reflecting now, sitting on your platform, the igloo's glow softer as the night deepens. Modern adaptations don't diminish the igloo's power, they expand it. Some Inuit use igloos for ecotourism, guiding visitors through the tundra, while others teach workshops passing the pukak wisdom to kids who might otherwise forget. You flash back to that polar bear den story, smiling at how the igloo's roots still anchor these updates. You joke to yourself that this is the Arctic's version of a tiny house movement. Except it's been sustainable for millennia, no Instagram filters needed. The igloo's also a bridge between past and future. Inuit elders work with youth, blending oral stories with hands-on building, ensuring the igloo's songs keep singing. You imagine carving a block beside a kid, their smartphone buzzing in their pocket, yet their hands steady with the same pana you used. The pukak's still the star, its texture unchanged by time. You're tempted to carve one last mark on the wall, a nod to this living tradition, but you settle for smoothing the platform instead. You chuckle, picturing telling your friends you're now an igloo futurist. They'd probably ask if you're selling snow condos. As you sit, the igloo feels timeless, its walls holding yesterday's hunters and tomorrow's builders in the same embrace. You're not just part of a craft. You're part of a continuum, a snowy thread weaving through Inuit identity. The Arctic's still out there, but your igloo, past, present, and future, stands firm, a testament to human ingenuity and heart. The light in your igloo softens now, the glow fading like a candle burning low. You're curled on the platform, furs warm against your back, the hum of the Arctic night wrapping you in a gentle hush. The stories linger, the hunters, the snow, the songs drifting like snowflakes in your mind. You're safe here, held by walls that have cradled countless souls before you. The stars peek through the vent, whispering that you've done well, that you've honored the igloo's spirit. Let the wind sing its lullaby outside. You're drifting now, carried by the quiet strength of this frozen home. Close your eyes, breathe slow, and let the Arctic's embrace guide you to dreams as vast as the tundra. Sleep tight, you clever builder, you keeper of snow and stories.